What is up, Dodgers Nation? We are on the phone with our friend, our pal, our buddy. I think we can call him that legally. He's been on a few times. Joe Davis is on the call, and he's about to be on the call at Dodger Stadium. How excited are you, and how are you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. I'm pumped, man. It's going to be weird for reasons we all know, but I'm excited to get back to work and have baseball back in our lives.
Yeah, that was the first thing I was going to ask you. You looking forward to doing something weird and sort of historic this year?
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the weird part. I'm not looking forward to the reasons that it's historic, but just simply having work, and having baseball to watch. I think we would all agree we can't wait until it's more normal again. But this is the best we can do right now, and I'm pumped for whatever it is that we whatever it is we decide is the best we can do.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're sort of this gonna be kind of a throwback Thursday of a season for you. No fans. It's got to be a biscuit season for you there.
Heck yeah, man! There's a stadium in the Southern League actually called Joe Davis Stadium. Ooh. In Huntsville, and the average attendance is seriously like 75 people. So I'm well prepared to have an environment like this. We pulled in. There was one time we pulled in our bus, and everybody hated going there and hated playing there. It was a dump, and one of our catchers yelled from the back of the bus, "Say nice stadium, Joe."
I mean, it sounds like you're going to be more prepared than maybe any other broadcaster in all of baseball in that matter. So that's good at least.
Yeah, any of us that have been in the minors have done plenty of games that will have felt like these are going to feel.
Right. So, I mean, look, the good news is, one way or another, baseball's back, but we'll have you in the Vin Scully press box for home and away games, which is a plus for baseball. I mean, Dodgers fans are obviously very excited about that. You talked about it with Eric Steven the other day, the struggle of calling those, fly balls off of TV monitors, because when you're used to being from your angle, you get used to those. My personal angle, I'm in the left field pavilion all the time, so I've gotten really good at being able to tell where those balls are going off the bat. So if I sit top deck, I have no idea what's happening.
Right.
But, you talked about that. Do you think, because you arguably have some of the most signature emphatic calls in all of baseball right now. Everybody's got their own thing. Every announcer's got their own special niche, but you really do have some signature calls over the year. How do you think that changes with this kind of new way of life for baseball in 2020?
It means a lot that you'd say that. I think that what I'm interested to see is, I don't know the answer to this. Can I, with conviction, because in order to have like you said, to punch a call and call it emphatically, in order for that to be the case, you've got to be pretty sure what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I can't start cutting into a call if I'm unsure if a ball's going to go out or if it has a chance to go out. So how much conviction am I going to have for these road games where I'm watching the monitor? Am I going to be able to really let it rip the way that I would like to? I hope so. I hope that, like I told Eric, I hope that it's not noticeable unless you know to listen for it and you're looking for it. And I think that I'm probably, and all of us that are about to broadcast these games are probably putting more thought into it than the fans are going to care to put into it. But it's definitely going to be different.
I can tell you, as a professional fan, having watched many a game on TV, even with a fan, I honestly do think it'll come pretty quick to you, as long as they're giving you the right angles, the right call, or the right audio. Like, you could just when you get that crack of the bat. Plus, you can you could read the batter a little bit when you start seeing them pimp job it out. If Jock does his best Tim Anderson impression, I think you're pretty good to be like, it's on the board or whatever.
Although there's the walk-off he hit on Jackie Robinson Day last year against the Reds. Yeah. You want to talk about one where I called it with conviction, because I see him start to pimp it, so I start to say something like, he's ended the night or something like that, and then my heart fell through my seat when I saw the ball get out by like 3 inches. I'm calling it like the thing's going to clear the pavilion. It barely clears the fence.
I was there that night, and when the ball got hit, I froze because I was like, that's going to be close. And then obviously it went out and everyone went wild. Yeah. But then when I watched it later, I was like, wow, Joe really called that one.
He knew it, huh? Yeah, I knew it until I didn't. and then oh my god, I think I said forget about it. Like
Right,
as he swung.
Well, the good news is I don't think you've really missed any calls like that.
No.
I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my
Knock
head.
on wood.
Yeah,
It's gonna take a pandemic and me calling a game from thousands of miles away. But,
that's all right. We'll give you
yeah.
a break this year. This year's
Yeah.
okay. We don't even
You
know
know
what's
what?
going on.
I think that the sense that I get is that, of course, I'm putting pressure on myself. We're all going to put pressure on ourselves to do well. But the sense that I get is that for the fans at home, and this is not just baseball, but across sports, as sports come back, for the fans at home, there's a sense of understanding that it is different. And it's like whatever we can get, we'll take. And, I appreciate that sense that I'm getting.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it, and we were obviously with the state of the world, you never know what's going to happen or how far we're going to get into a season. If we're going to get all the way through, we hope so. But I think we were watching the inter squad games, and we were even like, you know what? If this was the only baseball I got this year, like I'm thankful for it. I'm just I'll take whatever I can get right now. I just needed this. So I think every day that we have you calling games, every day that we get to watch the Dodgers play, we're just going to be thankful for it. Yeah. Whatever it brings us, we love it. We get to see Mookie Betts as a Dodger. We get to see Cody Bellinger as a Dodger. It's going to be good.
Yeah, so we know, they're broadcasting the games. We have John Hartung anchoring those games, and we appreciate John. We appreciate even Jerry Hairston and Ned and O calling from Vegas, and we hope he's on the road to get back home here. But you're going to be back in the booth real soon, and people are excited about that, and they're excited just to get you and Orel back in the booth. What about your schedule? That's one thing I know people would be interested about. What are you doing any more of the national games this year, or is that sort of still fluid for you?
Yeah, I am going to do some. How many and when is a fluid thing. Mm-hmm. Part of that is who knows what's going on with football.
Right.
So, when looking at my full schedule and how it's all going to break down, it's a little bit up in the air. But I'm going to be around, especially when you miss a game during a 162-game season, no big deal really. But you miss a game during a 60-game season, it's a bigger chunk.
Right. Yeah.
So we're just trying to figure out what the right balance is.
So of part of the weirdness, no spitting, no seeds, no handshakes, all that weird stuff for the players. We know that. You, Orel, Rick, you guys are tight. You're buddies. I'm assuming you have your own home run player handshake. What do you think is going to be the hardest, human element change for you guys in the booth on a day-to-day, or even getting to the stadium?
I just think all the stuff that we normally take for granted, parking and walking in, hopping on the elevator, going down, saying hello to everybody, it's
right.
And maybe it's the saying hello to everybody part where there aren't going to be many people to say hello to now because the staff is going to be so much less than you would see when it's a packed house stadium that you're normally going into. And I think that, probably the most significant drop off in interactions is that we're not going to talk to the players or the staff. We're not going to be allowed down in the field, and that's a big chunk of our day. So I think that is probably going to be the biggest off-air adjustment would be not having the interactions with as many people, and most impactful, not having the interactions with the players and the folks in uniform.
Yeah, that was one thing that we had talked about before. I was like, if Joe's stuck up in the booth all day, how does that change the relationship with players throughout the course of the season? So, do you have any plans to try to stay in contact with these guys? Because I know, you've become pretty close with a lot of them over the years.
Just yelling down on the field.
Yeah.
Hey, Jock, you're looking good.
I could do that. Right. Yeah. Hey, have you tweaked your swing? It looks different.
Professional analysis.
Exactly. There are a few guys that, I have texting relationships with, and I'll be sure to take advantage of those and check in. And already I know that, I would very rarely, and when I say very rarely, I don't know if I ever have asked a guy a question, a broadcast related question via text.
Yeah.
So now that I'm doing that, I've prefaced those with sorry, I can't be within 100 yards of you. This is the only way I can ask you.
Yeah.
And all the guys have been really cool about it and understanding. And I'm not going to be blowing them up, asking stuff every day via text. And there are some guys who I'm not going to text at all. I just don't have that kind of relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
But as with everything this season, I'm going to make do as best I can. And I think it will help having our weekly podcast where we visit with Dave Roberts. We'll have some kind of interaction with Dave Roberts every day outside of the podcast too.
Mm-hmm.
And, just check in with Mark Pryor occasionally, check in with the hitting coaches occasionally. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same level of access, but it doesn't have to be. Just because we can't be down in the field doesn't mean that it has to be zero access.
Absolutely. And perfect segue to my next talking point, which is since we last spoke, the Joe and Orel podcast became a real thing. And while I'm disappointed you guys didn't choose a name like, Jorel After Dark, which is, I think, one of the first things we told you about like a year and a half ago, or my personal favorite of Rick and the Booth Boys, as a title for the show. How has that sort of podcast thing been for you personally? I mean, obviously you talk about it on the show and, kind of, pushing O-Dog in there to make it happen. But how has it really been for you? And I don't know, just what kind of fun are you having with it?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I think that I anticipated that I would enjoy it. I think Orel was having a whole lot more fun than he anticipated he would have had. That's for sure. I think that we had hoped that we would be able to create a low-key, casual, easy environment for our interview subjects, but I think that's exceeded expectations. How disarmed guys have seemed, how open they've seemed to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And we've just had so much fun having those conversations with guys who we see every day when life is normal, but rarely do you get a chance to dive deep like we're doing with some of these guys, when you're just crossing paths with them at the ballpark. And two, when they're deep in a season and they kind of have the cliche game face on, it's harder to get into a conversation like that. And we've just seen guys much more willing during this downtime to go deep on some things, and we're loving doing that.
You have any concerns about being able to keep it up and running with consistency during the actual season, or it shouldn't be too much of a change to your guys' schedule?
No, yeah, I mean, we're committed to continuing it, so we're going to. I don't know that it'll be an hour long each week. There, as you guys know, there's a decent amount of work that goes into putting a show together that I've had plenty of over the last few months, plenty of time to spend as much time as I wanted on each show. That goes away, once the season starts. So we're just going to have to figure out a way to be a little more efficient in the way we prep, and probably to lower our expectations a little bit about what each show is going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, but I think in terms of podcasts that are out there's obviously a lot of Dodgers podcasts that exist, and everyone's always trying to have players and coaches on all the time, and it's great. But I think one of the things that you and Orel bring to the table, aside from the fact that you guys come from two different parts of baseball, which is great in itself, but also the fact that you do have close relationships with these players and these coaches, and they are more, if we're talking to a player who doesn't know us, he's going to be a lot less inclined to share personal stories or things like that. So to get to hear these deep personal things from players and coaches and from Doc all the time has been really great to just dive into and get to learn about these guys more. So that's
awesome.
We appreciate you guys for doing it for sure. Because again, having any sort of different window into these players' world is fun. But enough about us. We got to talk about the 2020 Los Angeles Dodgers. We talked about it a few months ago. This is a team that on paper you really just don't see any holes, even with the David Price opt-out, even with Max Muncy and his slightly injured finger. The team is stacked. Pacoda has them pegged at 38 wins in the 60-game season. Brooke also had them pegged at 38 wins before Pacoda, so there's something a little fishy there. Yeah. But what do you personally think a team can put together? How many wins can a team put together in such a short season and have it be just not like absolutely outlandishly historic?
I think 40. I think they could win 40 games and not have that seem like too out of character. You talk about how flawless the roster seems. 40-20 doesn't seem that crazy for a roster that looks like this. But who knows, right? I mean, the Reds could go 40-20.
Yeah.
Just 60-game sample, who gets hot, and you can't afford like 2 years ago when the Dodgers started 16-26.
Yep.
You're dead.
Yep.
So it's definitely the 60-game dynamic presents some really interesting variables to the whole thing. But I feel comfortable saying 40 wins would not be crazy.
On that same vein, we have, a lot can happen in 60 games, and obviously there's going to be some awards that come after the season. We just talked with Jock Peterson, and we said, hey, man, you got to win the MVP this year because then we have a full MVP outfield that we could finish 2020 with.
Right.
So with that in mind, do you have any MVP predictions? Who's your early pick? And it doesn't have to be a Dodger. It's okay. We won't be offended.
I'll give you a couple under the radar ones,
Okay.
one Dodger and one non-Dodger. For the Dodger, this comes from Dave Roberts on the podcast that just got released today. He says Corey Seager, and you guys have seen how locked in he looks in the scrimmages, and you've seen what he can do over a 2-month span, over a 60-game span. He can go through stretches where it looks like he's never going to make an out, and he's going to see one pitch in each at bat, and he's going to line it somewhere for a hit. And if you do that for a couple months and you play premium position like shortstop on what expected to be the best team in the National League, sure. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that he could win an MVP. And then going off of the Dodger roster, how about Ketel Marte in Arizona, who very quietly was one of the top 3 or 4 players in the National League last year. And everything I'm reading about him is that he's only gotten better, and some awe-inspiring stuff he's doing during summer camp there.
Yeah, I feel like he's a guy that has flown under the radar pretty well over the past couple of years, but he's definitely strung together some good offensive numbers for sure.
You got a pick for Cy?
That's Walker Buehler.
Hey,
there you go.
Yeah, going out on a limb there.
That's Walker effing Buehler, by the way, for those listening. What for just the kind of final one, because we've seen a lot of different numbers. Well, I guess not that many different numbers because Cody, or I think Jock, whoever, somebody sort of cheated and stole somebody else's number. But how many home runs do you think lead all of baseball in 60 games?
I haven't really crunched the math on what would be completely possible. I don't know, 21?
21. I'm calling it. I mean, if you're going to say 21, I'm going to say that it's somehow Jock, just because those, man, I'm telling you, when we saw pictures of his arms popping out, I was like, that's it, man. He's hitting 60 home runs in 60 games.
Yeah. It's that movement coach, man.
Yeah.
For real.
I need that movement coach.
All right, Joe. Well, we appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and we're happy you're going to get back in the booth. We're thrilled to have you back in, have you and Orel back in our homes, and we hope you guys really do everything you can to stay safe and continue flooding our ears through this whole 60-game season. Joe Davis, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Always good to talk to you.